There's no doubt we are living in politically uncertain times, but if you look at the way in which markets are reacting to all of these things, markets have been incredibly stable. You mentioned buying the dips. Everyone seems to be buying the dips. It's a very, very tough time for bears. 2017 has been an absolute graveyard for bears. So yeah, I think Mario Draghi is going to continue on the path that he's chosen here. Of the three big central banks that we're looking at, Mario Draghi has the clearest path. And I think political instability in Germany is a really big deal for Europe, and it will be a big deal for Europe in the years to come. Can have an impact on Greece, can have an impact on Brexit. But the ECB is independent of that, I think.
What happens to credit spreads in Europe then? Because if you consider that it's negative on the yield, the Bund for the 2s and the 5s still, what happens if there is still some pricing risk that comes into the mix because of Germany? Does it impact Germany directly, or does it have an impact more on the periphery?
Well, you're asking about credit spreads. Credit spreads are different from rates, so that there are two different elements when you think about the affordability of debt for European corporates. Credit spreads continue to be on a downward path, albeit that last week was a really, really big sell-off, both in US TMTs and in European corporates. But I see credit spreads continuing to tighten for the near term. There clearly is going to be a backup at some stage over the next couple of years, but I don't think this is sufficient. I think we're going to see a very large unwind of this grand experiment. The Fed will go first. Mario Draghi's got time to watch what happens as the Fed tears this sticking plaster off markets. So I think Europe is likely to be a little more stable than US markets in that regard. That said, the two markets are highly linked.
Andrew, what do you think the money flow is telling us? I was looking at the Bank of America Merrill Lynch analysis of flow data. Third largest week of high yield fund outflow on record at $6.7 billion. Bond funds in themselves saw $900 million worth of outflow as well here. Is this a canary in the coal mine, or is this a pause in risk appetite? And as you point out, we'll probably be back to the races when some of this political concern abates.
Okay, first thing to say is I'm a credit guy, so I'm always reasonably miserable. So I'm always looking for that canary. That said, it's probably more likely a pause, is my guess. We're all looking at what's to come, and we're looking at the unwind of this grand experiment and wondering what will happen. I think the market was massively overbought over the last couple of weeks, and we only needed a couple of single names and some idiosyncratic risk within TMTs in the US to see that pull back. But look at what happened in Europe. We had 10 major names in iTraxx crossover moving wider last week. Astaldi was the trigger, but we've seen UK retail corporate names also moving significantly wider. The Boparans of this world, the Pizza Expresses of this world, and that's to do with how we're feeling as credit market participants. We don't like the fact that it's been so easy for so long. We get very nervous when things are good.